All right, everybody, welcome on in. NorCal Sports Network baseball winter meetings, and we got the former general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers with us, Ned Colletti. Welcome on in, Ned. Appreciate it.
Man, good to see you, Carlos. Always good.
All right.
Great to have you, Ned.
Welcome, everybody. This show's sponsored by Chapman Law Group. Make sure you give Chapman Law Group a call for any legal needs that you might have. Maybe it's just some documents you need prepared, or maybe you got a bad tenant and you want to evict them. Give them a call. 415, where's their number? I'll pull it up here. There we go. Chapman Law Group, 415-613-9483. All right.
If you're the bad tenant, you better be careful.
Especially in California.
That one'll get you.
That's a whole nother segment.
All right. So, Ned.
In the winter meetings, things starting to heat up a little bit.
A little bit. Max Fried signed tonight, 8 years with the Yankees. What was it, 218, Los? Something like that.
Yeah.
218.
Notice they're just inching up over. Kershaw was 215, and then I forget who was like 216 or 217. So they're all saying we got to be the highest paid lefty.
God.
And so they're inching up by we say $1 million like we're talking about 25 cents, but it's interesting. They just keep wanting to raise the bar just a little bit.
Yeah, interesting. I think this pushes Burns up closer to 6. Maybe I could see somebody paying $240 for Burns.
Yes. Yeah. I would have him ahead of Max Fried.
Yes. And we're hearing Giants are in on Burns, and Toronto is what some reports go. One of the questions our other co-host that's with us a lot, Lou Marston, he wanted me to ask you, these rumors that go out, we're hearing Toronto Blue Jays, Giants for Burns. Are these put out by the agents or friends of the agents? Because a lot of these rumors, they never come to pass.
I would love somebody to do a research project, a case study. How many rumors that end up on Trade Rumors or, in the local press actually happen?
Yeah, what percent?
It's 5%. Might be 5%. It's hard to say where it comes from. The lobby at the winter meetings is full of people looking for information, sharing information. And now let's put ourselves in the position of the media. Somebody's paying them to go to Dallas. Somebody's paying for the hotel. Somebody's paying for the flight. Somebody's paying the meals, all that, and paying a salary. So you better be reporting something, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you're making it up, even if you are the not anonymous source. You got to come up with something. So that's some of it. And let me give you one more idea here. The word a team has interest in, or the team has talked to the agent. So I call Danny and I say, Danny, I'm interested in Carlos, signing Carlos.
Good move.
Oh, well, he doesn't have he's got other bigger
no speed.
offers.
Speed though.
He's got bigger offers. He ain't going to your podcast. Well, now you can say, well, you know what? I've talked to Carlos's agent. We're in conversation. It doesn't mean that anything is to fruition. That just means that there's conversation. I can probably safely wager, whatever, that every team that is looking for starting pitching that has a budget to work with probably called on Max Fried.
Definitely.
Probably going to call on Corbin. Going to call on guys. That doesn't mean anything's happening. If we read the report, it says has talked to or has an interest. When we break it down to what the words really mean, that doesn't mean anything. Now, the Giants have made a significant offer for Corbin. Okay, well, that may have, if it's true, that's got some weight to it. Okay. That doesn't mean they're the only team that's offered. So it's an exciting time for fans. It's a bit of a headache for the people that are dealing with it, but I don't think many GMs pay attention to it. They know the agents. They know their competition in the GM seat. They know how people think. They probably know what people have to spend to some extent just by doing their homework and knowing how ownership thinks typically for a certain franchise or where they're at or what they've recently done. Look at what the Giants have done with the left side of their infield. You know, they're anxious to get something done. You know that they're not gonna bicker about a few $1 million, right? They want to get something accomplished and get better now. So you take all those things in, and when you see a rumor, you see a story, you take it with a grain of salt, but you know where the validity is, and you know what reporters are on the inside, and what reporters are on the outside, and what reporters are close to agents, and what reporters are not close to agents, and what reporters are close to MLB.
Interesting.
Not close to MLB.
You mentioned reporters. How is like Heyman and Passan? How do they get the scoop? So the agent, once the deal is made, calls them. Is that generally?
I can't speak to either one specifically. I know that they're both very talented. They both work very hard. A lot of what they do isn't putting words together as much as it is having gained the confidence of people on every side of the equation to have truthful conversations with them. That's who they are. That's what they've done. How they get their info, I don't know. How they get the news first, yeah, that can come from somebody looking to curry favor. And I'm not saying it's Passan or John. I'm not saying them. But a lot of times when somebody breaks a story, somebody's giving them information in trade for something nice down the road. A nice article, or promote my player. I'm going to give you you can break the story on so-and-so signing this big contract, but I need you to mention a bunch of, it's the agent, I need you to mention 4 or 5 teams are interested in my other guy that's got no interest.
I wonder if there's a bonus if you're the first one to break the story, because last year there was a private jet leaving Los Angeles County heading to Toronto. Yes. And they could have swore that Ohtani was on that plane.
Oh, yeah.
It was wrong.
Oh, yeah. See,
it was the guy from Shark Tank, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah.
O'Leary.
I think you're right.
Kevin O'Leary. It was, yeah.
So that's a great story right there, because that shows you, and I know the reporter, I'm pretty sure I know who, quote, broke that story. And a veteran reporter, good reporter, wonderful person, and never happened. But somebody gave him some info, or he called the wrong person and got some faulty information.
That's right. That was
the message is, it's interesting and it gets people excited. But until you read, or until you see the press conference, or until the physical has been passed, Mr. Correa, until you know that, all you got is speculation that is maybe based on fact, or based on fiction, based on innuendo, or based on people trying to stir up some business.
Interesting. By the way, Willy Adames did pass the physical today. He is officially a San Francisco Giant.
Good. That's a good sign for them. Yeah. Maybe a little bit heavy, financially, but there's no doubt they're trying to improve the club, and they're starting to get there. They get a starting pitcher or two, and then you're allowed, Danny, to get on the phone and trade Logan Webb for 3 or 4 young stud players.
Logan and I have actually.
That's created a stir a little bit.
It's creating a stir. He tagged us the other night on while we were live, and all of a sudden we went from 200 people in the room to 6,000 watching us because of Logan Webb. And tonight he posted on Twitter something to me that little shade. He put a little tweet out that showed that he was, in the last 3 years, he's second in all of baseball for pitchers for highest FB WAR. So you
know what,
just a small reminder.
I agree with Logan Webb.
I do too.
Why are you trading Logan Webb?
Oh,
if you're the team, let me ask you this question. Okay.
I love Logan Webb, by the way.
So now you do. Okay.
No, I've always loved him.
Yeah. So you want to sign, if I remember our story correctly from a segment or two ago, you want to sign a couple free agent pitchers and then trade Logan Webb for 2 or 3 high-end prospects.
Yeah, or a really solid top-end bat that somebody.
All right. So let me ask you this. With the team that's going to trade you the high-end bat or the prospects, why wouldn't they just go and sign a free agent pitcher, maybe pay a little bit more, but not have to give up any prospects to do it?
Well, let me answer that. Because Logan Webb is signed for 4 more years at $18 million a year, and you just signed Max Fried for $27 million a year, and Logan Webb is a better pitcher, pitches more innings, eats up more innings. I think his value is so high. Now, keep in mind, my idea was if the Giants are ready to compete and actually put better players around Logan Webb, I think that's great. Keep Logan Webb. But if you were going to not do anything and you're just going to waste Logan Webb's best years and finish in 4th place with him, why not move off of him and build the team? That was my point. I think Webb, if you're gonna have Logan Webb, a true all-star pitcher, then utilize his years. It's kind of like Steph Curry with the Warriors. They got a window. Okay. Logan Webb has 4 years before he hits free agency. If the Giants stink in the next 4 years, you just wasted his 4 years. You didn't get anything out of him but great pitching.
You know how far you're looking ahead right now?
Yeah.
I agree. They're going uphill. But we got to give Buster Posey a chance.
Oh, I think things look good, better now with Adames. And if you land Burns,
if they're able to sign a starting pitcher that can be sitting next to Webb, either ahead of him or behind him, and they got a good bullpen and they can pick the ball up.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
then you're in business. You can compete for a wild card.
There you go. So, we're not miles away, probably yards away.
Yeah. Maybe I hope so. I really do. I think Webb's one of the most valuable pitchers in the game because he eats up innings. He goes 6
quality too.
Quality.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt.
Competes, good quality.
I've never bagged on Webb like to trade him, get rid of him. He's no good. It's trade him because he is so good. And if you're going to rebuild, it was a two-faceted. You either rebuild or you start putting players around him. And if they are willing to do that, then Webb is an excellent guy to have, whether he's your number 1 or 2. Like you said, if he's 1A, 1B, whatever. But I think the Giants got to land a starting pitcher. They have to. You lost Blake Snell. If you don't replace Blake Snell and all as you do this offseason is add Willy Adames, are you really any better off? If you look at WAR, you're not. You're about the same. You're a little better offensively, but you're worse pitching.
Well, I would have preferred moving off of Rodon and Snell at the deadline, kind of having a feeling that they were not going to come back and maximizing what you could have got for
that'd be the time to do it.
That would have been the time to do it.
See what you could do, even if you're just saving money that you could use this coming year.
Right.
Absolutely.
But going back to the Webb and trade them for prospects or a high end bat. If you're trying to get better, you trade Webb. You got to sign 2 guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you've got 1 stud. And you're going to try and add a second one. Okay, now you got 2. That's pretty good. You trade Logan Webb, You better sign 2 because
Yes.
you're going to need at least 2. You keep
That-
Logan Webb and sign 1, you got 2.
And that was part of my whole thing. You got to get 2 guys if you trade Webb. You got to get a Burns and an Evaldi, a Burns. I don't know if you can get Burns and Fried, but Burns and a Buehler. You got to have 2 really good pitchers if you're going to move off of Webb, because otherwise you're just trading pieces. You're not really going anywhere.
And it's better to know the player you know than the player you don't know.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know a lot about Logan Webb except that he looks like he's a great Giant.
Yeah.
He's from not that far away. I mean, he's
absolutely
So what if they sign Burns, and if they could talk Sasaki into coming to San?
Now you're competing for a championship. Now you're competing for a championship.
You go.
And you're also more willing to trade Webb if you know you have 2 or 3 young pitchers that you really are confident about coming up. And I don't think the Giants have that. Maybe Birdsong, but I don't think they're very confident in Harrison coming off of last year. So if they had 3 studs coming up that they felt very good about, then you can move off of them and balance out the rest of the team.
And as I did hear before, you better, Buster, in my opinion, one of the biggest jobs of any leader of the baseball ops department is to really know your prospects and to be honest with yourself, to know who do you think can and can't, and can for a little while or a half a season early in their career, whatever. You've got to be realistic with that, and that'll tell you the story to know what you have to do. I think it'd be exciting if they signed Burns and got Sasaki to come that way.
Oh, absolutely. The place would be rocking. And I did listen to Bob Melvin today on MLB radio. He had a really different sound to him this year. He sounded much more excited about this season than he did toward the end of last year. I think he was really worn out. Buster's has come out and said, I want my manager making the lineup. There was a lot of talk that he was not really in charge, able to make the lineup. Melvin just sounded like refreshed, and I think it's going to be a different year around San Francisco. Melvin's a good manager, and he's going to be able to manage. And he talked about him meeting Buster, how he played against Buster for 10 or 11 years while he was the manager of the A's, and said, I never really talked to Buster. I respected him. He was a great player, great leader. But in talking to Buster, he said that he's on page being both of these guys catchers. He was a little nervous. Are we going to connect? And he says, it is nice talking to Buster. We're in the same philosophy, which is nice to hear.
That is great. It is great. And that he can manage, and nobody knows, what goes on when, because you're not in the room type of thing. But, if he feels more confident and more of a chance to show what he can do and his strengths, it's nothing but a positive for somebody as accomplished as Melvin is.
Yeah. Now, Ned, you've been to many of these winter meetings. Tell everybody listening, what's it like? You get in there when they start on a Sunday. Every team has their own meeting room. What are you doing during these 2.5, 3 days? I know you've got Rule 5 drafts. You've got other things that are happening at the end of the week. But are you meeting with agents? Are you discussing with your front office your plans? Tell us what it's like.
Well, you're trying to use your time as best you can, and GMs used to be in the lobby all the time. I'm not sure many GMs or president of baseball ops, whatever you want to title the top position, are in the lobby. Lobby is really for a lot of media. Your scouts work the lobby. Your scouts, you'll get there on Sunday and you'll have all your scouts there, and you'll assign teams to them, teams they know, other scouts that they know who work for those teams, and you send them on a fact-finding mission. And you'll meet with them probably, if you meet with them at 6 o'clock on Sunday, you'll meet with them again at probably 11 o'clock at night. What do you got? What are you hearing? What's going on? How legit is what you're hearing? Things along those lines. And then, in the morning, you start again, and you send your group out, and they come back at 11 or 12 o'clock and they give you an update. And then they come back at 4 o'clock and maybe you meet with the media from 4 to 5 or something like that. And you're ordering room service. You'll set records for club sandwiches most of the time, and be ordering room service and not really going out much. You have a chance to meet with your staff a lot and people and really kind of bring your group even closer together. And you till the soil. You try and figure out the agent situation and player situation and trade situation. Going in what has got a chance. Picture a football field. What's on the 10-yard line going in. What's on the 30. What's on the 50. What's on the other 10 and got miles to go. And that doesn't mean that you can't get that one done, but it may take you longer than Sunday to Thursday, right? And so, Thursday doesn't happen much. Sometimes you'll get a major announcement on the Thursday if that's a day of the Rule 5. You talk about the Rule 5, which gives players who've been in the system for a long time a chance to get a major league job someplace. If a team wants to bring them to the major leagues and keep them there all year, they draft them and they give them a chance and see where it goes. A lot of great players have actually ended up doing that. Santana, the great left-handed pitcher, was a Rule 5 guy. I think Clemente may have been a Rule 5 guy.
Yes, he was. He was with the Dodgers.
Yes. And, so you can find some talent there, but, a lot of it isn't that. And you'll pay a price to draft a player, and then you'll offer him back. If he's not going to stay with your big league club, you offer him back and you get half your money back if the team takes him back. Sometimes that way you can get him to the minor leagues. And you really, if it's Thursday morning, the Rule 5, you're probably about Wednesday afternoon getting your player development people and your amateur scouts in the room and trying to nail down who you might pick. Teams that have had great seasons and are picking late in the Rule 5 draft, you're taking a chance on players to begin with. The deeper you get in that draft, the harder it's going to be to find somebody that qualifies. And sometimes if a team is a good young team that hasn't won a lot and they're drafting high, that pick has value. So they can trade that pick, or they can, quote, sell the pick and pick up an extra $50,000 or something like that to help with whatever expenses they've got to maximize their positioning.
That actually happened a couple years ago. The Pittsburgh Pirates had Blake Sable.
Yep.
And Cincinnati picked him up in the Rule 5 draft, and they got him, and the Giants somehow got him through the trade, but he was still Rule 5, where the Giants had to keep him on the roster for the entire year.
Yep.
So that was interesting. I didn't realize that. You made an interesting point there, that they could actually trade them, that Rule 5 player.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, they can trade the pick.
Yeah, the pick. Oh, maybe that's what they did. They traded the pick.
Yeah.
Trading the players is a different.
Okay. Dynamic. Yeah, they traded the pick to the Giants. Cincinnati did. Okay.
Yep.
Ned, you mentioned one of the most important, if not the most important thing a GM and an organization, for that matter, needs to do is to know your prospects, know who's special, who is not. And the reason I ask this question is because one thing I'm very, very much in favor of, and I don't see organizations do it too much, is what the Braves did with Ronald Acuna, with what the Brewers did with Chorio. They understood that these kids were special. They were talented. And before they put together 3 or 4 dominant years and were going to cost the moon, they signed them to very, very respectable 10-year, $100 million, and Chorio, I believe, 8-year, $82 million. And they're going to take that. Their family and their agent are probably going to take that.
Yep.
And they're going to get 8 to 10 years out of these kids. A lot of them prime years for very, very reasonable prices. I'm wondering why more organizations do not do that.
Well, it's like Danny trying to trade everybody and sign everybody. You need a couple partners to do that.
Right.
You need the player and the agent to have an interest in that. And, I'm guessing it'd be pretty tough to get a Scott Boras client to do something like that.
Yeah.
True.
And because he's all about the system and the value of it. The value of arbitration, the value of free agency. You'll see very few players sign, in their walk year that are represented by Scott because he believes in the process. So, you have to have other people that want to do that.
Right.
And you have to know your players. And, the Cleveland Indians, back when John Hart was running the team, did that a lot too. Signed a lot of players to multi-year deals before they were arbitration eligible. For 3 years, the team has got control of the money. And as long as you're over the minimum, players got really no leverage except to get another job and another career. So, but
just out of curiosity, is that allowed in hockey, Ned, or no?
Well, in hockey, you have a different situation. You have when a player turns pro, they sign an entry-level contract for 3 years.
Okay.
And then they're a restricted free agent. They're an RFA. And an RFA, teams can bid on them, but the team that signs them is going to pay that team a hefty price in picks and has the right to match the offer. You rarely see it. The St. Louis Blues did it this past year with 2 players from Edmonton, but you rarely see that. And then after that, they get more service time, actually more age and more time, and they're a UFA, which means that they're a free agent. They can go anywhere and sign anything. And if you're they do some very interesting things with it. If you are leaving your team, if you're going to another team as a UFA, I think you're limited to a 7-year contract. If you're re-signing with your team, you can get an 8-year contract. So they incentivize the players to stay where they are a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes you'll see the sign and trade where the team that is trying to acquire the player and wants the player for the rest of the season and then sign him after that, the team that he starts with will sign him to an 8-year deal, knowing that the team they're trading him with will take the player with that type of 8-year deal and the money attached to it. Gives the player an extra year, gives the player the same incentive to sign with the team he starts with. The 8-year, the extra year is a big thing. And so sometimes you'll see a sign and trade in essence where a player gets signed and then gets dealt. And if it's a high-end free agent, they're going to get 8 years from the team they started with and then be traded. All part of the design, all part of the conversation, all part of the plan. Doesn't get traded, waits to July 1, UFA. Most you can sign for, I think, is 7 years.
Got it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Ned, we just witnessed the largest contract in American sports history Saturday night with Juan Soto getting 15 years, $765 million. That can grow to $805 if the Mets pay him from 51 to 55 million years 6 through 15 in the contract. If they something to do with his opt out, they can basically
increase the pay after in year 6. They can increase the last 10 years,
so he can't opt out
by $4 million a year.
Right, and to void Soto opting out.
To avoid the opt out. Yes.
Right. Now, this deal, supposedly the Yankees offered $760 for 16 years and a $60 million signing bonus. The Mets offered $75 million. In this type of deal, when you're submitting your bid or whatever, is that like a blind bid that you're submitting to Boris, or is he coming back and saying, "I got this. You want to beat it?" How's that work?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times you'll get that conversation. You're going to have to get to this number for the player to go there. This many years, this number.
What's this like? Because is this like, hey, I'm trusting you. If we get there, are you going to do it, or is he going to go back to again?
Well, you got to ask that question. That's a great point. But you got to ask that question by saying, okay, so you're telling me if we do 15 years and 770 million with an opt-out after 4 years, and whatever they're discussing, that we have a deal. And the agent will say, well, maybe, or I still got to run it by him, and then there's still moving parts, or they'll say, yes, then we would have a deal. And you have to have the type of relationship with the agent to know he's telling you the truth.
Wow. I don't know if you want to share this or not. You don't have to name a name, but has an agent ever burned you or relinquished on the deal?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Wow. That's high stakes. I mean, 5 teams bidding, and
I'd rather have it that way.
Really?
I'd rather have to know what I have to do to get the deal done, because you're dealing in the dark. And it's the first time you really see any light, in a way, because you know what it'll take to do the deal. Because that's the question you're always asking yourself. How much is it going to take to do the deal? How many years? How much money? Agents willing to say, hey, we're getting near the end. I've got a bunch of offers like your offer. If you do this, you have the player. You hear that almost in any big deal. You're going to hear that.
Wow.
And then you have to make that decision. But you have to ask the questions too. So you're telling me if I do A, B, C, D, and E, this player is going to be a Giant, this player is going to be a Dodger, this player is going to be a Cub, whatever. Yeah.
Wow. And it could be a bluff too. You don't really know, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
You could be negotiating against yourself.
No doubt. All the way through in some cases.
I am just blown away by the length of these contracts, consistently getting players into their early 40s. It's mind-boggling. But I understand it. It's what needs to be done. But wow, what leverage the players and the agents.
Well, ask yourself this, Carlos: the people who do these deals,
yeah,
are they going to be in charge of the team in 15 years?
Great point.
Maybe, but maybe not.
Probably not.
But maybe this deal will help them get another extension or prolong their executive career at the highest level. So sometimes you got that. I mean, I've heard many GMs sitting around talking after the winter meetings or in spring training, talking about deals that, they regret a little bit, but they also say, if I didn't do this deal, the chance of me being back here are slim. And by the time this deal ages and it's not so attractive, I'm going to be gone anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
So ask yourself that question when you see that deal. Do you think, you both follow baseball out, do you think the person making this deal is going to be around to see the end of it? David Stearns and Soto, probably, because he's a very smart, very, very talented, very smart executive that's still in probably the first half of his career. But, you see some people that are in the second half of their career making a big deal.
Interesting.
It's absolutely a valid.
Yeah, this was the perfect storm for Scott Boras this year, because
no doubt
he had Shohei signed for $700 million, who it was not his client. And we all know Boras has a pretty good ego, and he's the number one agent in baseball. It's all he does. You knew he was going to top $700 million. I told everybody it's going to have a 7, and it might have an 8 on this deal, because it's going to be a lower AAV than Ohtani, because he's going to stretch it out because of Soto's age 26. But the thing that worked perfectly for him, he got Boston involved, the arch rival of the Yankees, I think the Yankees were more fearful of him going to Boston than going cross town to the Mets.
Yeah, the cross town PR thing.
Yeah,
Red Sox is a regular season thing.
Right. And then he gets the Yankees and Steve Cohen involved, and then he gets Toronto, another division opponent, and then just for kicks, the Dodgers come into it, who just beat the Yankees in the World Series. Perfect storm.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
And you know what was, and you know, I can hear the argument. You know, when you take Ohtani's deferral and you get what the union and the player relations committee or the labor relations department agreed to what the AAV is, it's 46, right?
Right.
Because it's not 70. So you think Scott was going to say, I need 47? No, he was going to probably say, I don't care what the AAV was. That was his idea of a good deal. My guy's not deferring that much money. My guy's needs, everything undeferred. And I need to be better than 46, even though I don't pitch, even though I'm not a 50-50 guy with a great arm. Even though I'm not that, I need to get higher than that. And I need to beat 700, even though 700, if you do the math, is really in the time of the value of the dollar as years go by is calculated at 460 million,
right?
Not 700. But at the same time, the union is going to use 700, beat 700. It's really 460. But it's been published as 700, right?
Right.
Nobody says that. The common line is Ohtani signed for $700 million over 10 years. But the reality, the time value of money, he signed for $460 over 10 years, and another, whatever, $340, I guess, or whatever the math comes out to, over another 10 years.
Right. He gets $68 million starting in year 11 over a 10-year period. But the Dodgers, they just take 350 or so, put it in an annuity, and it kicks out, it doubles, and they're just paying, they're really only going to pay 300 million of their own money out of that contract.
Probably, maybe, yeah. By the time you get the sponsorship,
20 years,
which have been off the chart, they'll be making money on this deal. They got the best player in the game. They have a unique talent, a great person, a fan favorite immediately, somebody that exceeds expectation, and they're going to make, who knows, maybe $1 billion off this. I mean, that's brilliant. And meanwhile, he's in the place he wanted to be with a team that's got a chance to win. Not only has a chance to win, but 2 months ago won it all.
Yes.
So it's one of those deals that everybody got what they were looking for.
Yes. We got our first donation here to start the GoFundMe for getting a Webb jersey for me. All right, Aaron. Thank you. I can get me a Logan Webb jersey. I'll wear it proud.
That may have been Danny's entire reason for starting this conversation.
I have an out of the box question for both of you. When do you think the game became less of a game and more of a business? And we'll focus on baseball for now, but it could be for all four sports. When did it become less of a game and more strictly business? Was it when players stopped representing themselves and they relied on agents? Was it when salaries became guaranteed? Neither. Is there another answer to that, or is it all of the above? Because, I mean, we all know what the game used to be and how it was more of a game, and we loved it then. Not that we don't love it now, but it is very, very, very business-like. Is there a decade or an era that you can think where the transformation went from a game to more of a business?
I got two words for you on that.
Tell me.
Let me just make a banner here, and I'll put it up here. 1 second. Just all right. Here we go.
I think I know what the word is. The 2 words are.
What?
Free agency. Oh, Kurt Flood. Okay, kind of. Okay.
That's it.
Good, Danny.
Ned, what are you thinking?
I think Danny has the gateway. I think this has been a evolving situation. I've heard, I was in the game 40 years, been a couple of years since I stopped. I've heard it almost every year. This can't go any further. I don't know how they're going to do this.
Yeah.
And 40 some years later, we're talking about a $765 million guarantee. So it evolves. It's like the San Andreas Fault. It just keeps moving. You can't see it move necessarily, but you know it's moving. And every year it moves further and further and further away, as does the value of teams. I may be wrong on this, but I won't be wrong by much. I think Frank McCourt selling the Dodgers for $2.15 billion may have been the second team, maybe a second team in North American sports, professional sports, to go over $1 billion.
Wow.
And over $2 billion. And now when you think about that, and that's been 12 years, when you think about that, the Giants paid about $110 million for the franchise, thanks to Bob Lurie and Peter and Larry and great ownership that kept the team in town. I think they paid 110. It's worth more than 110 right now.
3.7 billion.
So think about that. So
and growing.
So while we talk about the business of it, and we always kind of look at the player and the agent many times for the business aspect and frown upon them, the value of the franchises have skyrocketed too. The Yankees are worth $7 billion, according to Forbes or one of those publications. $7 billion. Mr. Steinbrenner didn't pay. He paid less than 15 million, I think, or maybe 6 or 7 million for it, long time ago. So you're a business person. You see the value increase. You see it keep going up. You see the TV revenue, the streaming revenue, things like that continue to be strong. That's what you're going to do. And the agents are paying attention too. And I did deals with Scott for a very, very long time. And many times when I would have to go to him and talk about, ownership won't let me do this, and we're going to go over budget, and, this is what we have to spend. He'd say, you know what? I think that's all nonsense. Because owning a team is like owning a house. You keep it for 10, 15, 20 years, you may double your money. You may triple your money.
Definitely.
So,
well, you notice a lot of my questions have to do and revolve around finance, because that's my industry, was real estate and mortgage. So I'm fascinated by that aspect of it. But even the real estate market crashed, and it just doesn't seem like pro sports is not going to do that anytime.
Well,
I don't see it.
We had a little bit of a tremor. I won't say we had a crash because we didn't. But we had a tremor when the regional sports networks for a bunch of teams a year ago filed bankruptcy. Suddenly you had free agents sitting out there for a while. Some of it may have been Scott. Some of it may have just been teams didn't know what they were going to get in their local TV revenue. You had a company that went bankrupt. That was like the first crack in it. Now, are the big networks that do baseball or do football or do the NBA, are they going to go bankrupt? Probably not. Because as you think about that too, Amazon, I think, is starting to do games, right?
Yeah.
YouTube is starting to do games, right? So you don't have fewer people interested in broadcasting. You have more.
Right.
So one of the negotiation points for something like that is, okay, we paid you X number of, you're gonna pay us X number of millions or billions for 100 games. Okay, but now other platforms get involved. So now you may only have 60 games, but they paid $100 million. So maybe they'll pay you $80 million for 60. So it just keeps going up and up. I mean, there's some teams that may have 3 or 4 different platforms doing their games. So you're spreading it out. Not necessarily easy for the fan to keep following it and know what platforms got what series. But it doesn't indicate to me that the TV piece of it, or the visual media piece, I guess to call it, is struggling. It seems to continue to be robust if there's more companies that want to get involved in it. Because as you look at sport, tell me something else that is live every day, that nobody knows what the outcome is going to be.
Not much.
You may in a political world, you'll get a live debate, or you'll get live stuff. Periodically, stuff is live. But sport, NFL, it's live every Sunday. It's live every Monday. It's live every Sunday night. It's live many Thursdays, right? It's live. Nobody knows what's going to happen. You could go to the greatest play on Broadway. You go to the greatest play. And at 9:50 every night, the best actor in the world is going to say the same line.
Interesting. Yeah.
At 9:50 at night, if you've got all 30 teams playing in baseball, you have no idea what's going to happen at 9:55, 9:50. So it's got that attraction to it as well. And when you introduce gambling, legalize gambling to it, suddenly now you've got all sorts of people that are interested in it that have really maybe had no interest in it. And before that, you had the advent of fantasy sport. I don't know how many people I know that couldn't name 10 NFL teams, but got involved in fantasy football. That are looking every Sunday or whatever night their team is playing, or day their team is playing, and seeing what the quarterback did, or seeing what the receiver did. I mean, it's really genius stuff.
Yeah.
And and Pete Rose in the last years of his life must have just been shaking his head, just going.
Well, he did. I love Pete Rose. I knew him for a long, long time, and loved talking baseball with him.
Yeah.
But he did something else.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, had he been betting football and that was an issue because it wasn't legal. Okay, that's one thing, but
I would encourage, if you're a baseball fan, if you haven't seen the Pete Rose documentary, to please watch it. Remind yourself of just what a phenomenal baseball player that guy was. Oh my God.
He might be on my all 26-man roster when I
barrel to the bat guy, just barreling it up, solid contact.
I was in Philly when he played for the Phillies.
Oh wow!
And he had a hit streak that was in the top
44, wasn't it?
He had more hits than anybody in the history of the National League. The only player ahead of him was Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
And he would go to Veterans Stadium at noon every day and have a coach named Billy DeMars throw BP to him day after day after. He had nothing more to prove necessarily. But his competition was, I don't know anybody that competed harder than he did. Mm. And, sadly, the great late Ray Fosse can serve as testament to that at the All-Star game.
71 All-Star game. That was brutal. Yeah.
But, he brought that. And his greatest accomplishment, if you were to ask him, wouldn't be having the all-time hit record. I think he was involved in more victories than anybody else.
Love it. Yep.
And I think that's he.
Hey, good night, Clayton. That's our 13-year-old fan that's in the chat. 13 years old. He knows baseball. Love it.
Clayton, talk to you soon. Have a good day.
All right. Hey, Ned, you mentioned something. Well, finish what your thought on there, and I'll.
that's Pete Rose was
yeah.
had less. If he's a Hall of Fame player, if he's in that room with the Hall of Famers, he probably had less God-given ability than any of them.
Right.
But nobody got more
out of
his ability than he did. Look up how many years he played, how many at-bats he had, how many home runs he hit.
Yeah.
You may be at 150.
His hitting style was so unique with the crouch on both sides from the plate, almost like he shrunk the strike zone. Yeah. And maybe was just able to level see the pitches coming and identify them quickly. And you just don't see that in hitters in the last decade or two. I loved his hitting approach.
There's so many stories about him that would show you like the ultimate compete. He got to Philadelphia. Huh?
You were pretty close. 160 lifetime homers.
How many years?
14,053 plate appearances. Let me see how many years it was. 63 was year one, ended up in 86. So what's that, 23 years?
Ooh, 23-year career.
160 home runs.
Yeah, it's an average of 7 a year? Something like that? Doing my math out the top of my head. What is that? 160 divided by 23. Yeah, 6.9. Hey, that's pretty good, Dan.
I told Danny in that Boston 99 All-Star game that of all those legends that were there, and yeah, some of it had to do with what was going on with his banishment, but he got the loudest ovation. I mean, just pure baseball fans that love the game just respected the way that guy played the game.
No doubt.
Yeah. Ned, you
probably empathize with what he did. He made a mistake. He made a grave mistake.
Definitely.
And
Ned,
he had a chance to rectify it, but was too stubborn.
It's sad. It's sad they didn't let him in a way because he asked for forgiveness. I thought, it would have been kind of humane to, unless he bet against to lose. If he was betting on his team, those slips to win when he was managing, I could give grace to somebody like that. But if he was throwing games, that's different.
Danny, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a different dynamic. But if you're the bookmaker and this guy is betting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and he's not betting Tuesday and Wednesday, isn't he telling you he doesn't think his team has a good enough chance to win?
Yeah, I can see it.
He only bet on his team to win. But again, I don't think you bet 162 games a year.
Right.
So in essence, your lack of confidence could give a bookmaker some idea.
Plus, I guess if he's managing, he could say, "I'm not sending this guy up. I'm gonna, whatever." It's a big wart on the game. Ned, you took over the Dodgers. The first season was what, 2006?
Yep.
All right. You mentioned 9:50. What's happening at 9:50 p.m. in a sports game? You never know what's going to happen. Tell us about the night, September 18th, 2006. I'm sure you remember it well.
It was a Monday wraparound series against the Padres, who were in first place. It was my first team there in LA. We had finished with 91 losses, the team I inherited. And I emphasize inherited. I hadn't had a 91 loss team in probably close to 30 years. And we had a chance to get close to San Diego, maybe time that night, and we fell behind early. And we rallied, and we fell behind again. And we got to the ninth inning. We were down by 4 runs, and we had 4 consecutive home runs. I don't know the order. I know it was J.D. Drew, the great Jeff Kent, Marlon Anderson, who I picked up on August 31st, and Russell Martin. And we tied the game. And even though it was September 18th and we had 13 days left to play, I was at peace with whatever else happened for one of the only times in my career, because for a team to come back by 4 down to tie a game in the ninth after being up and being down most of the game, I thought showed tremendous heart and perseverance. And then we gave up a run in the top of the 10th.
Right.
And after all of this, we're going to get beaten. They're going to pick up a game and we're going to lose a game. It's a 2-game swing. And Kenny Lofton got on. And my dear friend Nomar Garcia-Parra did a walk-off home run.
Unbelievable.
And we won the game.
Unbelievable.
It was that game and the Brian Johnson game in '97. Giants versus Dodgers were the 2 greatest regular season games I ever witnessed.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. I can't imagine that crowd when, especially, can you imagine the people in the parking lot? Let's get out of here. This game's over. And all of a sudden you're hearing the people screaming and what's going on? You missed maybe the greatest, it's got to be one of the greatest feats in baseball history.
It hasn't happened very often. And it happened at that segment of the game. It's hard to do.
We got another super chat here from Travis Smitty, and we've got some other questions. I'm going to get to George's question about the Giants and Burns. But first, Travis says, do you think the Dodgers go after Kyle Tucker?
I don't know. I mean, he's a great player. I think if they can improve the outfield, they will. I know they have great interest in Tio Hernandez, which they should. He was tremendous. I think the rate for him went up when Soto signed. I know Sasaki is at the top of their list, and that's not necessarily a money deal. That's really a convincing a player of your culture, your city, your desire to win, and the people that he's going to have call teammates. San Diego may have a shot at that. But I think the Dodgers are the front runner. You got Yamamoto and you got, Shohei, and you've got a front office that has dealt with, even in my day with Saito and Kuroda, has had Japanese players before. We've had tremendous experiences there. So you have the history of all of that. The outfield, I think, Tucker's going to cost you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, do you have that much to deal? And doesn't Houston, Houston's got a good club.
Yeah. They're talking about, who knows if it's true, if again, what we talked about earlier about these rumors, Valdez and Kyle Tucker. But I would think the Dodgers were to go after Tucker, it would cost them Cartea and couple other pieces right now. Now, the closer you wait till the trade deadline, I think that's the smarter move, because he's 2.5 months from free agency, not going to cost you as much. And we know the Dodgers, or I should say, the Dodgers know very well they're going to be in a position of a playoff position where they can wait till then. So
yeah, I don't know. I think it's obviously anytime you can add a player of that talent, you got to have an interest.
Now we got another question from George Curry. Would you go after Burns, or would you give Burns a 7 or 8 year deal?
Great question. I signed Clayton to 7 years. Somebody I'd known since he was 18, had won 3 Cy Youngs, or had won 2, was going to win a 3rd MVP coming up. And it wasn't easy doing 7 years with a pitcher. You have to be prepared that there's not going to be a season full of 30 game starts. If you can live with that, then you do it. If you're not going to be there when it goes down, it's another thing. But that's the going rate too. So, how many years did Max get?
7. No, 8. 8. He got 8.
So you're gonna tell, who's gonna tell Burns that he can't get 8?
When you do that, though, Ned, if you say, well, if you want to go 8, I can't give you 40. I give you 6 and 40. And you're going to go 8. I'm going to have to bring that down because is that how it works?
Sure. But you're also going to expect him to make more than max.
Right. Yeah, he's going to definitely top 218.
So the chances are that he's going to get himself 8. That's, if somebody said, what do you think it's going to be? I'd say he's going to get 8.
Well, I'll bet you he gets 30. It's 8 and 30 for a 240 deal. That
makes sense.
Guess. Snell got 5.
That makes sense, but that's
Snell got 5 and 36 million AAV, but his was 182, right? Snell? Yeah, 182.
Yep.
So
wow. It's safe to say that setup relievers should be demanding a lot more money nowadays, since starters are not going deep into games as much to bridge to the closer, I would think, right?
No doubt. You're paying more for starting pitching than you ever did, and they actually do less.
Yeah, they're going to go. Do you see a 6-man rotation becoming a baseball thing, or just a few teams?
God.
Well, I think it'll start with a few teams, and then it'll evolve into 6 across the board. You still have to have 6. Half the teams don't have 5.
Dang, I'm
so
gonna start.
What you're going to have is
6. I'm going to start
rather than a 6-man rotation. You're going to have more games with openers.
Lowe's, you want to go out and play some catch tomorrow? Work on our arms, see if we can come back.
Well, I was at a carnival recently, and I thought I had a pretty good arm. And when I hit 62, I was quite humbled and walked away.
Yeah. It's not as easy as it looks, guys.
Not at all. Not at all.
Here's a great question from Aaron, one of our members. What do you think, Ned? Is it likely we see a work stoppage when the CBA expires in 26?
I don't think so. I think both sides are doing well. Franchise values keep going up. Streaming monies or platform monies keep going up. Salaries keep going up. I think you'll see some things adjusted, but I don't see any of the major issues being there. I wonder, an issue that I don't hear anybody talking about, but it's one of the things I think, in my opinion, caused the 1994 strike was the lack of parity.
Wow.
Maybe, I'm not sure if it was a strike or, what it was. It stopped the game, stopped the World Series. Part of the reason was it was before revenue sharing, I think, and before luxury tax, and teams couldn't compete. And so you had the haves and the have-nots. And as you look at it now, somebody wrote, I don't know if it's fact or fiction, but somebody wrote that Soto's average annual value contract is higher than the A's payroll. So you have one player making more than 26. How does that work? Do we think the A's have a chance to compete in the AL West? Do we think Colorado has a chance to compete in the NL West? Do we think that even the Giants have a chance to compete in the NL West? Do we think Pittsburgh has a chance to compete in the, in the Central? Do we think Florida has a chance to compete in the East? And pick your own American League teams on the other side. There's probably 6 to 10 teams. They go into spring training knowing they got no shot.
That's tough.
And fans know they've got no shot. So, yeah, you're going to, buy a ticket here and there because you love the sport. Are you going to do it once a week when the team's home? Are you going to do it 40 times a year, 20 times a year? I don't know.
Ned, do you see the owners asking for a salary cap?
I don't think you'll ever see a salary cap in Major League Baseball. I think you'll see a cap after the game gets shut down for 2 years. I don't think they ever go for it. They haven't gone for it yet.
That's real. It's the truth.
And
Ned,
what's the argument? You know, your
Wow.
revenues are great. That some of you don't spend the money, that's on you. That some of you aren't as creative on deferrals as the Dodgers have been, is that the player's fault?
Mm.
I mean, I'm just taking an agent's perspective.
No, for sure.
Is that whose fault is that? Is that my player's fault that he can't make what Ohtani's making, or he's as good, or he's better than Juan Soto? You're telling me that we're capped?
Ned, we watched Barry Bonds break the all-time home run record in 2001. Yep. You mentioned 94 in the strike. Do you think that this player right here would have broken Babe Ruth's record first in 1994 if it had not been for the strike?
You're talking about Matty Williams right there.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Matty Williams. I can show you there. There he is. Oops. Matt Williams over.
He was on a roll that year.
Hey, look, he hit 43 home runs in 112 games. That's every 2.4 games he was hitting. So he had 50 games left. He would have, on average, it said he would have hit 24 more. So that would have given him 67. Do you think he would have broke it that year, or do you think the pressure would have been so great because nobody had come close?
Well, I hate these types of questions. What if?
Yeah.
Two words in sport that drive everybody crazy. I think he got into the high 50s at least, and it's tough to say how it would have went after that.
Wow.
You saw the stress that Maris had to go through in 61?
Yeah.
By the way, I love that movie with 61 with Tim and Mantle. Billy Crystal directed it. That's a very underrated baseball movie.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, that was.
It's hard to say. It's hard to have conjecture with that.
Yeah, it was just a phenomenal year. It was a shame. They didn't even finish the year that year, did they? No World Series winner that year. Wow.
Stopped in early August, I think.
And baseball survived that. We were talking about revenue and everything, and the fans were pissed off for a little while, but
it was tough too. I mean, that's when I got hired in San Francisco, and the Giants. I got hired in November of '94. So, the season ended in August of '94, and we weren't in a place where we were drawing a bunch of people. We're selling Candlestick, and so a lot of people I think lost their jobs because of it. And I just I think it changed the game, and some franchises, it took them a while to get back.
Do you have any I don't know, you're probably not much in the prediction stuff, what teams, where some of these guys may end up. As we close this out, we go another 5 to 7 minutes here. The thought is that Bregman could end up with one of the New York teams because of what these prices have been going to. I could see him going to the Mets, especially if Alonso leaves and they can move Mark Vientos from third to first, who's a young power hitting kid who can play both corners. And then you put Bregman, but I could also see the Yankees going for Bregman. Now that Fried has left Atlanta, do they go to look for a lefty like Sean Manaea to replace him? How does this thing take off in the next few days? We thought this last year, and then it just kind of died. This year feels like teams might want to move a little quicker, and agents might want to move quicker.
Well, you have, like I said earlier, you had a regional sports network that did a lot of teams' games that was going bankrupt. So teams didn't know what their revenue was. I think for the most part, they had that sorted out. So teams kind of know what to expect revenue-wise. And so, you've got that. I think you've got great competition in New York for both, winning games and the back page of the New York Daily News or Post, So you got that incentive a little bit. I think that both those teams will be in on them. I think Atlanta under Alex Anthopoulos has done a great job for a long time. He's going to get Strider back hopefully, but he just lost one of the top left-handed pitchers.
Right.
So I don't know that you win without pitching. So we can talk about third basemen and outfielders and things like that. I think there's very few teams that go to sleep tonight and go with confidence that they have enough pitching. Perhaps the Dodgers now, if the guys come back healthy, and you add Blake Snell to the group, and if you add Sasaki to the group, you're pretty rich in the pitching department. But not many teams have that. I mean, how many teams have got two great starting pitchers? How many teams know that they have 5 quality, and you probably need 8 or 9 to get through the season, at least 5 quality starting pitchers and another 3, 4, or 5 that can start 15 games for you if necessary. I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough of that. So I think that's where the concentration is. And to one of your points earlier about paying your relief pitchers more because they're more valuable, that's another situation. So I think the pitching is where most of the emphasis will be. And doesn't mean you take your eye off of third base or the outfield. But it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter how many positional player all-stars you have if you're chasing the scoreboard 6 out of 7 nights a week. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Ned, as far as the international market goes, Japan obviously first and foremost is at the front. Then obviously the Caribbean has been as strong as it has to produce players. Is there a country that is kind of a up-and-comer sleeper that is producing quality major league talent for the major league level?
Great question. Europe is starting to get better. Still a long way to go. Competes with European football or soccer a lot. A lot of kids would rather be the last player on the soccer team than the best player on the baseball team. Mm-hmm. It's cultural expectation sometimes.
Is Korea coming up little by little?
Korea's been pretty good though too.
Yeah,
Korea's had some really good players. It hasn't been as prominent as Japan has been, but it's got players. There's no doubt they have players that want to play in the big leagues and are capable of it. So I don't really know that there's any dynamic out of the blue team or a country that's coming in and in 20 years is going to be producing 30 to 40 MLB players a year. I took the Dodgers to China my second or third year with the idea that in time maybe China could start to produce Major League Baseball players. Knowing that, I wouldn't be alive when it started to happen, but that at some point in time it would happen. But it takes a long time. Baseball, the NFL is trying to globalize by playing flag football. Kind of brilliant. You could play it with 4 people, 5 people. You and a friend can go shoot hoops someplace, one-on-one. Play the game of horse, right? Hockey, you need ice.
Right.
And you need more than a couple people. In baseball, you need more than a couple people. So those two sports have a different dynamic. If they're the top 4, let's put soccer in it too. It's the top 5. Soccer, how many people do you need? Not necessarily many. And kids can practice on their own. You can shoot hoops on your own.
Yeah. I love the hockey overtime 3-on-3. I think it's great.
Yeah, but that's a different topic in my opinion. But as you're trying to develop players, you can shoot hoops by yourself.
Yeah.
You can shoot at the goal by yourself. You can't really make saves by yourself. I guess there's machines that could be shooting pucks at you. Like baseball, you could have a pitching machine, but you can't necessarily play the game by yourself.
Correct. And I asked that question internationally because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like less U.S. kids are playing baseball, more playing football and basketball.
Yeah, that's been an issue for a long time now.
It's been that way for a while. Yeah, maybe it's more want the instant gratification and don't want to go through the minors that you have to do and the grind that you have to do in baseball.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Ned, before we get out of here, last question. The Dodgers just signed a few days ago Michael Conforto to a 1-year, $17 million contract.
Yep.
I think it's a good move for the Dodgers. I like Conforto. I think the Giants misused him personally, but what does that signal anything? Is that a safety net against Teoscar maybe going somewhere else?
Probably. But they also like platoons.
Mm.
And they have Chris Taylor signed for another year and probably trying to, get him on track. They've had really some great years. They're talking about them with Arenado, another right-handed hitter. So it gives them a little bit balance. I mean, they do have left-handed hitters. 2 of their top 3 are left-handed, plus Max Muncy, 25 to 35 home run guy, left-handed. Right. It's a little bit of an insurance policy, but he's a pretty good player.
As a GM, do you look at 65% or close to 70% of the pitchers in baseball are right-handed? Do you look at hey, we need more left-handed bats versus right-handed in that situation?
Well, first of all, you need hitters that can hit both sides of pitching.
Thank you.
You got to start there.
Yes.
And then you got to figure out how you're going to balance it out, because you can probably within 80% predict the rotation, barring injuries of other teams. If you really wanted to go through the exercise to find out how many times you're going to face a left-handed starter or a right-handed starter. But again, all you need to do is have the left-handed starter go 4 innings and bring in the right-handed reliever, and everything's upside down. Some guys have had 2 at bats, some guys have had 1 at bat. So they better be able to hit the right-handed, be able to hit a right-hander. If they start with a right hand, they bring in a lefty reliever. You got to be able to hit left on left. So,
right. Well, guys, last news of the night, nothing major, but according to Ken Rosenthal, the Rangers are acquiring first baseman, third baseman Jake Berger from the Marlins. Doesn't say what the return is, unknown. So, Jake Berger.
Underrated power hitter.
Yep. Yeah, he is. He is.
Kim Ng made a great trade getting him out of the White Sox.
Yeah, that's right. Was she your assistant in LA for a while?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I have one last quick one for Ned, and it's a film question because not too long ago, Ned, I asked you Bronx Tale or Goodfellas, and you thankfully said Bronx Tale because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. This one's going to be a little bit tougher, okay? So, real tough. Godfather 1, Godfather 2. Who do you got? Or which do you have?
Would have been easier if you said Godfather 3.
I know. I wanted to make it tough.
Well, would you understand Godfather 2 if you hadn't seen Godfather 1?
It's a very good.
Godfather 1 wasn't a great movie. Would you even watch Godfather 2?
Right. It's a very good debate when I asked that. It's
so
pretty
Godfather 1 gave Godfather 2 a chance.
There you go.
It's kind of like Brando versus De Niro.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong either one. Just both great films. But.
Leave it to Lowe's. Always put Ned on the spot with a either or. What was your restaurant one in San Francisco? You had Lowe's. You said which restaurant? Lowe's. You gave him a last time.
No. Ned told us his favorite Italian restaurant in San Francisco to go to.
Yeah,
and I remember I wrote it down, but I haven't been there. But I need a
Phoenix on Grant and Green.
I need a Phoenix or Scottsdale Italian restaurant go to now.
Donato Trattoria.
Okay.
Off Scottsdale Road.
You got it down, Los? We'll go grab some dinner there.
It's about 10 minutes from the Giants Scottsdale Stadium.
Speaking of Giants, I met with Casey Schmidt today down at Giants training facility, and I've got him in the other room. I should have brought him, but we got 12 autographed baseballs that we're going to be giving away on the show this month. So be joining the shows, and we'll just do some kind of drawing. There's no cost or anything. It's just little gifts from NorCal Sports, and Casey Schmidt was gracious enough to sign the baseballs. So we'll be handing those out. So guys, thanks so much for joining. It's been great. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7:45, same time. And we thank Ned Colletti for joining us. Everybody have a wonderful night. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, Ned.